He was massive. Ingrid Bergman's final confession and the life she couldn't hide anymore. When Ingrid Bergman wrote the words, "he was massive," she wasn't just speaking about a man's physical presence. She was remembering someone who left a deep, unforgettable mark on her life. That simple, powerful line appears in her memoir, a book filled with both beautiful memories and painful truths. Known for her timeless roles in movies like Casablanca, Gaslight, and Anastasia, Ingrid was one of the most respected and admired actresses in the world. But behind her soft smile and elegant presence was a woman who lived through heartbreak, scandal, and personal battles. The man she referred to, Gregory Peck, was just one part of a much bigger story. Her life was not only about red carpets and golden awards, but about choices that tested her strength, love that risked everything, and a truth she could no longer keep hidden. Ingrid Bergman was born on August 29, 1915, in Stockholm, Sweden. Her early life was filled with tragedy. She lost her mother when she was just 3 years old. Then, at the age of 12, her father, who had given her a love for photography and storytelling, also passed away, orphaned at a young age. Ingrid was raised by her relatives, but even as a shy young girl, she found comfort in the world of acting. She dreamed of stepping onto the stage and escaping into stories bigger than her own. She attended the Royal Dramatic Theatre School in Stockholm, the same place where Greta Garbo had once trained. It didn't take long for Ingrid's natural beauty and emotional depth to shine. She began starring in Swedish films, and soon Hollywood came calling. Her big break came in 1939 when American producer David O. Selznick invited her to star in the Hollywood remake of the Swedish film Intermezzo. She arrived in America with little English, a soft accent, and a fresh face that stood out from the overly stylized stars of that time. But Ingrid didn't need to try to hide her honesty, simplicity, and sincerity won audiences over instantly. She was different, and people loved her for it. Unlike other actresses, she didn't wear heavy makeup or pretend to be something she wasn't. That honesty made her relatable and unforgettable. In a very short time, she became one of Hollywood's most sought-after stars. She wasn't just a beautiful face, she was a serious actress with real talent, and everyone saw it. Throughout the 1940s, Ingrid delivered one powerful performance after another. In 1942, she starred in Casablanca opposite Humphrey Bogart. Her role as Ilsa, a woman caught between love and duty, became one of the most iconic performances in movie history. Her emotion, her grace, and the sadness in her eyes touched people deeply. That same year, she took on an even more challenging role in Gaslight, where she played a woman slowly being driven to believe she was insane. Her performance won her an Academy Award for Best Actress. Critics praised her for showing such fear, confusion, and strength all at once. Then came Notorious in 1946, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, where she starred with Cary Grant in a dark and thrilling story of love and espionage. Again, she brought her full emotional power to the screen, but just when her career was at its peak, Ingrid made a decision that shocked the world. While still married to Swedish neurosurgeon Dr. Peter Lindström, Ingrid fell in love with Italian director Roberto Rossellini. Their relationship began while she was working on a film with him. Rossellini was famous for creating a new kind of realistic cinema in Italy. He saw something raw and true in Ingrid, and she saw in him a different life, one full of freedom and artistic honesty. Their affair quickly turned into a scandal. When Ingrid became pregnant with Rossellini's child, the news exploded in the media. She was called immoral. She was banned from appearing on American television. Even U.S. senators spoke against her. The woman who once symbolized purity and grace was now seen as a threat to public morals. But Ingrid didn't hide. She left Hollywood, divorced Lindström, and married Rossellini. Together, they had 3 children, including future actress Isabella Rossellini. During her years with Rossellini, Ingrid starred in several of his films, including Stromboli, Europa 51, and Journey to Italy. These films didn't perform well at the box office, but later they were recognized as important works that helped shape modern cinema. Their marriage, however, was not easy. There were cultural differences, pressure from the public, and artistic disagreements. Eventually, their relationship ended in divorce in 1957. Just a year later, Ingrid married Lars Schmidt, a Swedish theater producer. With Schmidt, she found a more peaceful and supportive home life. Their marriage lasted until 1975. Through all these relationships, through all the highs and lows, Ingrid never stopped acting. never stopped searching for truth in her performances, and never gave up her independence. Ingrid's return to American cinema came in 1956 with the film Anastasia. Her performance as a woman claiming to be the lost Russian princess won her a second Academy Award. It was more than just a win, it was a public apology from Hollywood, welcoming her back after years of exile. She went on to win an Emmy for portraying Golda Meir in A Woman Called Golda, and even a Tony Award for her work on stage. Ingrid spoke 5 languages, acted in 5 different countries, and worked with some of the greatest directors of the 20th century: Alfred Hitchcock, Ingmar Bergman, no relation, Sidney Lumet, and more. Her career was filled with achievements, but it was her strength and honesty that made her truly unforgettable. She didn't pretend to be perfect. She made mistakes, loved deeply, and always stood by her truth. In her memoir, Ingrid shared stories from all stages of her life: her childhood, her fame, her exile, her loves, and her struggles. But one of the most surprising and emotional moments in her memoir is her mention of Gregory Peck. She remembered him not just as a co-star, but as someone who left a lasting impression. He was massive, she wrote. It was more than a physical description. Gregory Peck was tall and handsome, yes, but to Ingrid, he also carried a presence that made people stop and feel something. She didn't give too many details. She didn't say exactly what their relationship was, but the way she described him suggested deep admiration, maybe even love. Her words were full of awe, a quiet confession from a woman who had lived through so much. For Ingrid, that line, "He was massive," seemed to say it all. It carried weight, memory, and emotion. It was a glimpse into a private world she usually kept hidden, whether she meant his presence, his strength, or the way he made her feel. The moment was unforgettable. Her honesty in that line reminded readers that even icons have tender moments they never forget. In a way, it was also a final nod to a generation of actors who lived with secrets, loved in silence, and carried their emotions into every role they played. Ingrid didn't just tell us about her films. She gave us a piece of her soul. She showed that even the strongest women can carry quiet, unspoken memories that shape who they are. Ingrid Bergman passed away on August 29th, 1982, on her 67th birthday after a long and brave battle with breast cancer. She died in London, surrounded by her children. The world mourned her loss, but celebrated her life. Her legacy remains strong, not just because of her films, but because of her courage, her grace, and her refusal to live by other people's rules. She made bold choices in love and art. She accepted the cost of her decisions, but never let them define her. Through heartbreak and glory, she remained true to herself, and even in her final words, she reminded us that love, strength, and honesty are what truly makes someone massive. Ingrid Bergman's emotional tribute. He was massive. Ingrid Bergman was no stranger to greatness. She had worked with some of the most famous and talented men in Hollywood, from Cary Grant to Humphrey Bogart. But when she spoke about Gregory Peck in her memoir, it was with a kind of reverence rarely heard. She didn't describe him with just admiration, she described him with awe. Peck was tall and handsome, yes, but what made him unforgettable was something deeper. He didn't just walk into a room, Bergman wrote. He filled it. His presence was overwhelming in the best way. There was something noble, almost Roman, in the way he carried himself. His movements were smooth, his posture relaxed, and yet he had the quiet power of someone who didn't need to say much to be heard. When Bergman called him massive, she wasn't just talking about his body. She meant his entire being, his values, his integrity, his heart. Gregory Peck had a way of making you feel seen. Bergman said his eyes looked right through you, not to judge, but to understand. You couldn't lie to him, she explained. His silence could be more powerful than any speech. When they worked together, there was a strong connection. It wasn't about physical desire, she said. It was about emotional respect. Sometimes she would forget her lines, not out of nerves, but because she was caught up in his energy. He made her feel both challenged and safe. He reminded her of what real greatness looked like, not perfection, but presence. That kind of presence stays with you forever. Gregory Peck stood out in a world full of loud voices and big egos. He didn't seek attention. He let his work and his quiet strength speak for him. In a place like Hollywood, where vanity was often a survival tool, Peck remained grounded. He never needed to be the center of the room, Bergman wrote. His silence had a power all its own. He took his roles seriously, not for fame, but because he believed in the truth behind the characters. He believed in showing goodness, even when the story was dark. Bergman admired that deeply. To her, Peck was more than just an actor. He was a man of deep moral strength, someone whose soul left an imprint on everyone he met. Her words were not exaggerated. They came from a place of real respect and quiet love. While their working relationship didn't turn into a romance, the emotional impact Gregory Peck had on Ingrid Bergman lasted a lifetime. In her later years, as she looked back on her career, she often returned to that connection. "He left an imprint on me," she said, "not just as an artist, but as a woman. There was something timeless about him, something honest." When she wrote, "He was massive," it wasn't just a dramatic phrase, it was the only way she could describe the effect he had on her life. He was a man who combined strength with kindness, power with peace, and that combination, especially in Hollywood, was rare. In speaking about him, Bergman wasn't just remembering an old co-star. She was honoring a man who had touched her spirit. But Ingrid Bergman's story didn't end with Gregory Peck. Her own journey became one of courage, strength, and grace. In the early 1970s, during the London run of the stage play The Constant Wife, Bergman discovered a hard lump under her left breast. Even though she was performing nightly, she acted quickly. On June 15, 1974, she had surgery at a private clinic in London to remove the lump. At first, it seemed like a small setback, but it marked the beginning of her long battle with breast cancer. She didn't make a public announcement. She kept it private, fighting with quiet dignity. But the illness didn't stop her. She continued to act, pushing forward with the same strength that had defined her entire career. Years later, while filming Autumn Sonata, Bergman felt another lump. This time, the timing was even more intense. She was playing one of the most emotionally raw roles of her career under the direction of Ingmar Bergman, no relation. The role mirrored the pain and struggle she was going through in real life. After filming, she returned to London for another surgery. Most people would have stepped away from work, but not Ingrid. Soon after recovering, she started rehearsals for Waters of the Moon, a television play. She refused to let the disease define her. She refused to let it steal her purpose. She kept going, not out of denial, but out of passion and courage. As the illness progressed, Ingrid Bergman continued to challenge herself with powerful roles. One of the most important came in 1981 when she played Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir in A Woman Called Golda. By that time, cancer had changed her physically. Her face showed signs of treatment and time. She looked older, more fragile, but she brought Meir to life with deep strength and humanity. The filming was difficult. She was in pain and growing weaker, but she never let it affect her performance. It was as if she gave everything she had left to that role. When the film was released, it touched people across the world. It became one of her most celebrated late-career performances, and in the end, it earned her both an Emmy and a Golden Globe Award she received after her passing. It was the final proof of a career that never stopped reaching for truth. As her health declined, Ingrid Bergman retired to her apartment in the quiet, artistic area of Cheney Gardens in London. It was a peaceful place near the River Thames, known for its beauty and charm, but for Bergman, it became a place of silent struggle. There, she went through chemotherapy, facing the final stage of her illness with quiet strength. Fans often waited outside her building, hoping for a glimpse of the star they loved, but she stayed away from the windows. Her body had changed. The cancer had spread to her spine, collapsing a vertebra and causing great pain. Her right lung no longer worked, and only a part of her left lung remained, and yet she remained strong inside. She was still Ingrid Bergman, the woman who had captivated the world with her grace, her fire, and her truth. Ingrid Bergman passed away in the early hours of August 29, 1980, to her 67th birthday. She died peacefully, surrounded by love. Her ex-husband, Lars Schmidt, with whom she had stayed close, was by her side. So were 3 other close friends. That night, they raised a final toast to her, a moment of quiet celebration, respect, and love. Beside her bed was a copy of The Little Prince, the small book she loved for its ideas about innocence, loss, and the unseen beauty in life. It was open near the end, a quiet symbol of her journey. Even in her final hours, she held onto something beautiful and thoughtful. It was the perfect ending for a life lived with such purpose and grace. Her memorial took place weeks later at the famous St. Martin in the Fields Church in London. Over 1,100 people came to say goodbye. her children, including actress Isabella Rossellini, were there. Friends and family flew in from Sweden and around the world. The church was filled with artists, actors, and admirers. Among them were legends like Liv Ullmann, Sir John Gielgud, and Dame Wendy Hiller. Passages from Shakespeare were read aloud, honoring Bergman's love for theater. Songs played during the service included This Old Man from the Inn of the Sixth Happiness and As Time Goes By from Casablanca. Her voice, her spirit, seemed to echo through the music. It was a goodbye filled with both sadness and deep gratitude. Her grandson, Justin Daly, remembered that day well. Outside the church, chaos broke loose. Hundreds of photographers pushed and shouted, their cameras flashing. It was overwhelming. At one point, Daly was struck in the head by a camera. But in that moment of pain and confusion, something powerful happened. He looked around and realized something that would stay with him forever. I understood she wasn't just my grandmother. He said, she belonged to the world. That truth summed up Ingrid Bergman's legacy. She was more than a star. She was a symbol of strength, beauty, and truth. Her story full of highs and lows, of passion and pain had touched millions, and even now, long after her death, her light continues to shine.